Picture this. The year is 1250 BC. Thebes is the most powerful city on Earth, capital of the New Kingdom, home to maybe 100,000 people. Pharaoh Ramesses II rules an empire stretching from what we'd call Syria down to Sudan. The temples of Karnak and Luxor dominate the skyline. And across the river, the Valley of the Kings holds the tombs of pharaohs. But what was it actually like to spend one single day here? Not as a pharaoh, not as a high priest, but as an ordinary person, trying to survive inside one of the ancient world's greatest civilizations. Using AI trained on archaeological evidence and historical records, we've reconstructed what 24 hours in ancient Egypt could have looked like. Not just monuments, not just gold and glory. We're talking about the real Egypt, the Nile flooding your fields, the bread you eat every day, and the gods who might decide whether you live or die from dawn to midnight. Let's step back 3,300 years. The sun breaks over the eastern hills, turning the Nile from black to gold. You're standing on the riverbank in a small village south of Thebes. Because the Nile is everything. It's your water source, your highway, your calendar, your lifeline. Right now, it's the season of Shimu, low water, harvest time. The fields are dry, the crops are ready, and in a few months, the inundation will come again. Fishermen are already out on the water in small papyrus skiffs, reed boats that barely stay afloat, yet have worked for thousands of years. They're catching tilapia and Nile perch, fish that will be sold by midday, or salted and dried for later. Women walk down to the river with clay jars balanced on their heads. No taps, no running water. Every drop has to be carried. The Nile is muddy, but it's what you drink, what you cook with, what keeps you alive. You can see farmers heading into their fields, wheat and barley ready to cut, flax for linen, onions, garlic, lettuce. Everything grows because the flood will return. When the waters rise in Akhet, the inundation season, it deposits rich black silt across the land. That's why Egypt exists at all. Miss the flood and you starve. Too much flood and your village drowns. Priests track it obsessively with melometers, stone markers that measure the water level. They compare it to past years, predict the harvest, and tell the pharaoh whether Egypt will eat or suffer. But today, the water is low, and the harvest is coming. By the time the sun is fully up, you're heading into Thebes. The city stretches along both banks of the Nile, the east bank for the living, the west bank for the dead. On the east bank, the temples of Karnak and Luxor rise like stone mountains. You're not going inside. Not really. Not like the elites do. But you know exactly what's happening in there right now. The most important ritual of the day. The high priest enters the inner sanctuary at Karnak, home of Amun-Ra, king of the gods. Before dawn he bathed in the sacred lake, shaved his entire body, and dressed in pure white linen. Now he breaks the clay seal on the shrine that holds the god statue. He chants hymns, burns incense. Smoke rises in the dim light filtering through high windows. Then he opens the shrine. Inside is a small statue of Amun-Ra, gold and lapis lazuli, maybe 2 feet tall. The priest washes it with sacred water, dresses it in fresh linen, anoints it with oils, and places jewelry on it. Then come the offerings: bread, beer, meat, vegetables, fruit, piled high on altars. The god consumes the spiritual essence, and the physical food is divided among the priests as payment. This happens every single day, morning, noon, and evening, because the gods must be fed like living beings. If the rituals stop, Mot collapses. Cosmic order fails. Egypt falls into chaos. The priests take that very seriously. Outside in the courtyards, lesser priests perform other rites. Scribes record offerings. Craftsmen repair walls and statues. Karnak isn't just a temple. It's a city inside the city, workshops, granaries, storerooms, libraries. It owns land, controls workers, and rivals the pharaoh himself in wealth. But you don't see the inner world. Those areas are forbidden. You pray in the outer court, leave a small offering, and go. By mid-morning, you're at your job. Maybe you're a farmer, bent over wheat with a sickle. Maybe you're a craftsman, potter's wheel spinning, loom clicking, chisel hitting stone. But let's say you're on a construction project, a new temple being built for Ramesses II. And here's the truth. You're not a slave. You're a free worker paid in rations, bread, beer, oil, sometimes meat. The work is brutal. You haul heavy stone blocks from the Nile to the site, dragging them on wooden sledges. You pour water on the sand to reduce friction. Overseers shout. Teams compete. Everyone pushes. Because there's pride in this work. You're building something meant to last forever, something the gods will live in. Your back aches. Your hands are calloused. You've seen men crushed by falling stones. Others with spines ruined after decades of hauling. But you're fed better than most Egyptians. If you're injured, you get medical care. And when you die, you'll be buried properly with your name on a marker. At the site, a scribe records everything. How many blocks moved, who showed up, who didn't, and why. One Ostracon from Deir el Medina lists excuses for missing work: brewing beer, bitten by a scorpion, embalming his brother, or too drunk from yesterday. Egypt kept records of everything. By noon, work stops. The heat is unbearable. You find shade and eat bread. Always bread. Bread is Egypt. Wheat ground into flour, mixed with water, baked in clay ovens. You eat it with every meal, sometimes dipped in beer, sometimes with onions or garlic, sometimes with a bit of fish if you can afford it. Beer is the other staple. Not like modern beer, thick, nutritious, mildly alcoholic, often safer than water. Everyone drinks it. Children, adults, workers, priests, even pharaohs. Brewers, often women, are respected. Beer is a gift from Osiris. Sacred. If you're wealthy, you might have meat, beef, goat, duck. Most people eat meat only a few times a year during festivals. Vegetables are common. Onions, garlic, cucumbers, lettuce, lentils. Fruit is luxury. Dates, figs, pomegranates. The rich eat differently. They import wine from the Mediterranean. They eat fine white bread. But you? You eat bread and beer and whatever the season gives. It's enough. Egypt is rich. The Nile provides. While you eat in the shade, Ramesses II is in his palace across the river. His day began before dawn, purification baths, prayers. He performed the ritual symbolically, though the high priest did it in his name. Now he sits in the audience hall. Walls around him show painted reliefs. Smiting enemies, receiving tribute, speaking with gods. His vizier presents the day's business. Reports from Nubian gold mines, news from frontier garrisons in Syria, updates on building projects, land disputes, tax records, and the pharaoh decides. Final decisions. He orders workers reassigned, approves an expedition, settles disputes. Because he is not just a king. He is a living god, son of Ra, embodiment of Horus. If he fails to maintain Mot, the sun won't rise. The Nile won't flood. Egypt collapses. Impossible responsibility. The weight of the universe on his shoulders. But he also wears a gold cobra on his forehead, lives in a palace, and has servants for everything. Fair trade. Maybe. Later, he reviews his tomb construction in the Valley of the Kings, his eternal resting place carved into rock, painted with spells from the Book of the Dead, filled with what he'll need beyond life. Because death isn't the end. It's a transition. If you're prepared properly, you'll live forever in the field of reeds, a perfect Egypt where the harvest never fails, and the beer never runs out. As the sun drops, work ends. You return to your village. Your house is mud brick, with a flat roof where you might sleep on hot nights. A few rooms, dim and cool. No windows, just small vents near the ceiling. Your wife has been grinding grain all day, making bread, managing the household. Women in Egypt have surprising rights. They can own property, divorce, and inherit. But expectations remain: home, children, daily labor. Your kids play in the street, boys and girls together. Education is rare unless you're training as a scribe. Scribes are elite. They sit in shade and write while others sweat. There's even a text mocking other jobs. The metalworker's hands like crocodile skin. The fisherman stinking of fish. The farmer crying louder than birds. Scribes were not humble. But you're not a scribe. You're a worker. And you're proud. Dinner is simple. Bread, beer, vegetables, maybe dried fish. You eat outside as the Nile turns from gold to red to purple. After dark, the village quiets. No lights, no streets, only the moon and stars. People don't travel at night. It's dangerous, wild animals, bandits, and what people swear are demons. So you stay home. Maybe you tell stories about the gods. How Ra sails through the underworld each night, battling the serpent Apophis, and returns victorious at dawn. That's why the sun rises, because Ra wins. Maybe you pray to Bes, protector of households and children, or Taret, the hippo goddess who guards childbirth. The great gods, Amun-Ra and Osiris, belong to temples and pharaohs. But household gods belong to you. A small shrine, clay figurines, amulets. You pray for health, for harvest, for your children to survive. Child mortality is brutal. Maybe 1 in 3 die before age 5. Life is hard, but this is the world. Live well, follow Mot, treat people fairly, and when you die, your heart will be weighed against the feather of truth. If it balances, you enter the field of reeds. If not, Amit devours your soul, and you cease to exist. So you try to do right, and hope it's enough. So that was 24 hours in ancient Egypt. Not gold masks and pyramids. Not curses and kings. The real Egypt. Bread and beer. Mud and the Nile. Gods in every corner of daily life. A civilization that lasted 3,000 years. They learned how to live in a desert by mastering the Nile. How to feed 1 million people with bronze tools and human labor. How to build monuments so massive we still debate how they did it. They gave the world hieroglyphs, papyrus, a 365-day calendar, medicine, architecture. But more than that, they built a way of life. They believed this world was good, so good they wanted it to continue forever. The afterlife wasn't heaven. It was Egypt, perfect Egypt, eternal Egypt. And you can still see it today. Karnak, Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, and the Great Pyramid at Giza, standing after 4,500 years. They built for eternity, and they succeeded. Thanks for watching Time Warp Cities. These reconstructions take enormous research, piecing millennia into a single day. If you enjoyed this journey, hit subscribe for more immersive history. And comment below, which ancient civilization should we visit next? As always, I'll see you in the next time.